what's going on? Ryan Nolting here with Intersection Records, and we are talking again this week about my favorite albums, and this one is near and dear to my heart, as these all are, and it is the 1977 debut album from Van Halen. So Van Halen, of course, is made up of Alex Van Halen on drums, Michael Anthony on bass, Edward Ludwig Van Halen, better known as Eddie or King Edward Van Halen, and the incomparable David Lee Roth on lead vocals. There's David in his leather pants. So let's give a little backstory on the band. So Eddie and his brother Alex Van Halen is 2 years older than Eddie. They came over from Holland, I believe near Amsterdam in the late 50s, settled outside of Pasadena, California. In fact, they took a boat over, from Europe. And that boat trip back in the late 50s took like 2 weeks to cross the Atlantic. And during that time, their father, Hans Van Halen, actually set up gigs on the boat and made money and hustled and was able to put bands together on the boat and make some money for his family. Well, they settled in the Pasadena area. Both brothers are musical, and they get into piano. And ultimately, by the late 60s, they have bands. One of their first bands is called the Trojan Rubber Company. That band turns into a band called Genesis. Upon finding out that Genesis has already been signed to a major label, of course, the band famous with Peter Gabriel and ultimately Phil Collins, they then decide they're going to change their name to Mammoth. The original lineup of Mammoth is Eddie Van Halen, Alex Van Halen, and a bass player named Mark Stone. Eddie's actually handling the lead vocals. You know, they're borrowing a PA from a guy named David Lee Roth, and they're getting charged. He's charging him $10 a gig to borrow this PA, and they decide that it's smarter that Eddie focuses on guitar, and this David Lee guy can sing pretty good. So David Lee Roth joins the fold. By 1974, Mark Stone leaves on bass, and Michael Anthony comes aboard, and David Lee Roth suggests that they change the name from Mammoth to Van Halen, and of course the rest is history. They're doing gigs in the Pasadena area, in the Los Angeles area, and they are literally stopping traffic, playing backyard barbecues, parties, dances. Literally 2,000 people will show up to somebody's house because of this band, and they're playing covers, and they're starting to do some originals, at which point they start hitting the Sunset Strip. Back then, they were playing bars like Griseri's and the Starwood, and ultimately the Whiskey A Go-Go, which was the crown jewel of the scene back then. In 1976, Gene Simmons, who has already started off a successful career with Kiss, and who has his own little subsidiary label from Casablanca Records, is up at the Starwood. In fact, he's up there, as he says, with a woman who would ultimately have a baby with Steven Tyler. That baby was Liv Tyler. He's up there with her when he hears this music coming from the stage, and it blows him away. He goes outside and he tries to sign these guys to his label, and he does. They do some recordings in Los Angeles. They are flown to New York, and they do some of the finishing touches at Electric Ladyland, and they have this 15 song demo. On that demo is, Running with the Devil. On that demo is On Fire, and some of the songs that would later become Van Halen classics. The guys in the rest of Kiss and Casablanca Records, and as Gene tries to shop this music, are not interested. And we know from history that Gene Simmons is a shrewd businessman, but he believes in this band so much when he finds out they can't get a gig with him or an actual real major label deal, he releases them from the contract. It's now 1976 still, and Warner Brothers finds out about Van Halen, and ultimately in the late summer of 1976, Van Halen records their first album, and again, this masterpiece is released in February of 77. And it changes really everything. And we're going to go track by track on this album of why I love it so much. You know, there is no father to what this music comes from. It does not sound like it's derivative, really, of anything. Yes, Eddie is a huge Clapton fan. Yes, Eddie probably has been influenced by Steve Hackett, potentially, of Genesis. Jimmy Page, of course, Cream, we already talked about Clapton. But he's also doing things that have never been done before. His technique, his finger tapping technique, and other just tonal qualities. This guitar that you can see Eddie playing there, right? That is the white Frankenstrat that he ends up putting red tape on as well. So that does become the guitar that ultimately is the most famous guitar, arguably, in the history of rock. That is the same guitar. Let's go down this track by track. I am going to use some notes that I wrote just so I can properly. So the first song comes in with that siren, right? Running with the Devil. That siren scream at the beginning goes right into a thumping bass. Dun, 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 dun. And then we launch into the huge riff. And Van Halen is born on record. It ushers in a new era. This is ushering in a new era of really metal. I mean, the year prior in 1976, Rainbow Rising had come out. And even the year before that, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow with the album with Man on the Silver Mountain had been released. And of course, the Thin Lizzies of the world and the Deep Purples of the world are helping to create the modern heavy metal sound. This just takes it up to another level. The second track on this album is Eruption. Eruption is a 1 minute and 41 second guitar solo, of course. And it changes the way the guitar is being played again. Up-and-coming guitar players and professional guitar players hear this song, and it scares them to death. Similar to the way that when guys like Eric Clapton, heard Jimi Hendrix, it scared them because he was doing things that really hadn't been done before. And really everything that follows is kind of derivative in the American metal scene of Eddie Van Halen's playing. The third song, of course, on the album is a cover of the Kinks' You Really Got Me. And this is a great example of a cover being better than the original. I'm a huge Kinks fan, and we're probably going to do shows. By the way, subscribe to my channel. Look at my 50 greatest guitar players list. Look at my ranking of the Van Halen albums. Look at all my other shows. We do daily content here. This is a daily channel where you can come to check out music. And it's music that I like. And I do want to preface this in saying, I have no business ranking albums. I have no business necessarily even ranking guitar players or top drummers, which I have. But I do this because I have a passion for music. And I hope you can understand that. You Really Got Me is just an incredible example of a cover being better than the original. It's just that riff 4 times, and then it's, Girl, You Really Got Me Now. And the harmonies, Michael Anthony's harmonies, along with Eddie, are so brilliant on this entire album. The next song, the opening riff of Ain't Talking About Love. is just unbelievable. You may have all that you want, babe, but I got something that you need. And I ain't talking about love. Because my love is rotten to the core. And that sounds pretty hardcore in the sense, but there's a way that Dave's able to still be a little charming, even when he's being completely misogynistic in a way, but he still is charming. At the same time, this is a brutal album. This is nothing like what would come out, 7 years later on 1984, where he's singing about Jump and some of these songs that are a little more comical. This is almost like hardcore punk. Just an amazing. Again, the bell cymbals. Hey, 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 hey. I mean, it's insane. Ain't talking about love. Then closing out side one is I'm the One. An explosive opening riff. Then the drums. Then Eddie's single notes and harmonics. And there's so much attitude. I'm the One is just incredible. I'm the one you love. Come on, baby, show your love. Give it to me. The tapping and the solos is incredible. And then, he does a little vaudevillian thing that ba-ba-da, shoo-ba-doo-wah, ba-ba-da, shoo-ba-doo-doo-ba-doo-wah. Then the harmonies, ba-ba-da, shoo-ba-doo-wah. So we're full-blown American hard rock and heavy metal, but then they still have the song sensibility to have that harmony. So, I mean, they're the best of every world. They're a heavy metal band, and I'm going to call them a heavy metal band here. But they still are able to write a catchy tune that actually crosses over. They're not just 99% male at the show. There's a sexuality here too, and it's incredible. Let's flip the album over and get into the next, and it's Jamie's Crying, right? My notes on Jamie Crying, just a completely iconic riff. It was sampled in hip hop, right? Like it was a Tone Loc that samples Jamie's Crying. I mean, the vocalist, David Lee Roth, is in complete control. The guitar harmonics through the verses, just think about the wow, 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 da-dum-bum-bum-dum-dum. I mean, harmonies for days, sex appeal. The first bridge, is, give me a call sometime. And then there's another during now Jamie's been in love before, and she knows what love is for. And the backing vocals go, ooh. Again, it's almost like Motown is inspiring this metal. If you don't have Michael Anthony and Eddie, because everybody says, oh, Eddie's singing too. I don't think this music works as well if you don't have that song sensibility. And it's the icing on the cake. I mean, the whole band is icing on the cake. You got a great drummer who plays perfectly with his brother, Eddie. Alex Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen. You got a bass player who isn't the strongest musician in the band, but his singing is incredible. And then you got an iconic frontman. Atomic Punk, the way that it starts out, at the beginning. I am a victim of the science age, a child of the storm. And then he comes back with, I am the ruler of these netherworlds, the underground. Oh, on every wall and place my fearsome name is heard. Look around. Nobody rules these streets at night like me, the atomic punk. It's just incredible. And again, it's dangerous sounding. It's punk. I want to call it almost like hardcore or punk. I mean, it is, if there was never another Van Halen album after this, or really the first 3 or 4 albums that are so heavy, let's just say they just did those 4 albums. This is just a balls to the walls hard rock and metal band. I mean, they don't take their foot off the gas really until some of Diver Down, maybe, which is a great album too. I love Diver Down, but The next song, Feel Your Love, crunching. Crunching, what Eddie calls is a brown sound. He says he always wants to have that brown sound. I've never really understood what that means other than that's his tone. He calls it the brown sound. We're getting funny in the back of my car. I'm sorry, honey, if I took it just a little too far. So, I'm begging you, baby. Begging on my bending knees. I can't wait to feel your love tonight. And again, he's able to sing a song, about taking it too far, but still make it slightly charming in the sense that it's just insane. The ride out chorus, the guitar solo is iconic. The harmonies, again, that bleeds right into Little Dreamer. It's a little bit more mellow of a song, but it's killer. Again, superb vocals. Michael Anthony, I have 5 exclamation points behind it. And then they went and voted you least likely to succeed. But you are, baby, all you need. And no one's talking about it. It's so good. And then we have like an acoustic blues song, Ice Cream Man. Let's dedicate one to the ladies. Summertime's been bad. So he's dedicating it to the ladies. So clearly there's sexual innuendo obviously all over the song. David Lee's there to give the girls some ice cream, and he's got all the flavors to keep them satisfied. So this thing starts off with that and the acoustic. And a lot of times when you saw them live, David would come out with the acoustic. The guitar solo at the end and the electric guitar playing. So the song goes from acoustic to electric. That might be one of the greatest guitar solos and greatest guitar songs in the history of heavy rock. It's so damn melodic. It's so fierce. And the pick harmonics and the things that he's doing and all these solos in this album are just incredible. And I know we're getting long here on this album review, but this album finishes up with On Fire. Just full flight heavy metal, just booming Michael Anthony bass, 3 minutes of raging rock with howls, vocal howls and wails and guitar harmonics. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks for letting me talk about my favorite album or one of my favorite albums. We're going to do this every single week. We're going to review albums. I'm going to the Corey Wong concert tomorrow night with Victor Wooten on bass. I'm going to review that. We're going to do some restaurant reviews and talk about things that I like. Peace out. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and see you later. Rock on, Van Halen.